From the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
A Tuesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, and of course on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, which is free thanks to First Bank of Seattle. Glad to have you guys back on board the show today. We will get deeper into the state of the Eagles this offseason. We will be joined by NJ Advanced Media's Eagles beat writer Chris Franklin coming up in less than 20 minutes from now. Also, we will get into the Sixers losers of 3 straight. Should we be concerned? We'll get into that this hour as well. You could join the conversation. Text board is open, 609-403-0973, or you can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Before I get to the Eagle stuff, we got to touch on the Sixers, because under normal circumstances, a game in Denver on March 27th would not be a highlight of a season. But I felt last night was something that you can walk away with and actually feel a little bit encouraged by. The Sixers didn't play Joel Embiid, didn't play James Harden, had neither one of them available in the game last night. And in turn, they still had a chance to win a game that I personally assumed they were going to lose. I'll admit it. I thought they were going to lose the game outright last night. I thought, man, this team is playing without Joel Embiid, without James Harden. They're in Denver. They're probably going to lose by 10-15. That was my working assumption personally. Then, as I'm consuming the game, as I'm watching it play out, I'm realizing that this Sixers team might actually win this game. And you could argue that if it wasn't for a weird, bizarre couple calls at the end of the game, they weren't biased calls. They were just odd and misses, just complete bad jobs by, the referees in the court. And you could argue it was a bad challenge by Doc Rivers, however you want to frame it, but the Sixers could have won the game last night. I personally don't think that it's beyond a reasonable doubt that this Sixers team would have won the game if Embiid or Harden played. And what I take away from the game last night is that I think that whatever Doc Rivers has been saying to guys like Tyrese Maxey and to some of these other bench players, it's obviously working. Now, look, as Mike Gill said earlier on the Sports Bash, I am under no delusion to think that this team, the backup center position, is functional right now. Dwayne Dedmon is just like his name. He's dead weight. So I think we all can agree on that. And I could care less that PJ Tucker didn't score points last night. The Sixers are now 16-6 when PJ Tucker scores 0 points this year. Don't care. Non-factor in the game. He only played 23 minutes anyway. The bigger story from the game last night was the production you got off the bench. Paul Reed had a really good night, all things considered. 16-9 were the points and the rebounds, and he played some good defense as well. McDaniels, he gave you 14 points. Niang, he got you 2 for 4 from 3. You got some legitimate production from the bench. The problem was last night, it felt like the Sixers coaching staff, and I'm not going to say Doc Rivers specifically, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The Sixers coaching staff made the collective decision to stick with the bench guys too long. They never really went back to the starters. Now, part of it was Dedmon was not playing well. He got basically abused out there. He barely made an impact on the game, aside from a couple rebounds, I think. I remember one, but that's it. The guy didn't give you much last night. And it didn't help that Melton got into foul trouble as that game progressed either. So I understand that they looked at that game last night and said, look, we're playing pretty well with the guys that we have. Let's ride it out. But whoever on the coaching staff's idea that was, it seems like it's the same person who thinks that Dwayne Dedmon and DeAndre Jordan are productive members of this organization. And the reason why, personally for me, I will not accept this idea that has been propagated on social media and on certain other media outlets. The reason why I won't fall in line with this idea that it's all Doc Rivers' fault is because we were told, all Sixer fans were told, that Doc Rivers was coming in here with this all-star coaching staff and that Daryl Morey is supposed to be this great, ahead of his time basketball executive, president of basketball operations. We were told that these people were supposed to be part of this team's success. And for whatever reason, either because Doc Rivers is listening to the wrong people or the smart people are not being listened to in the organization, whatever the reason is, you keep having these situations happen. And you keep having a situation like Mike Gill spending a chunk of his opening monologue on the Sports Bash today talking about we are back to square one with the backup center position. So that's why, for me, I can't blame it all on Doc Rivers. Because at some point, Doc Rivers, during the game, is talking to Sam Cassell and Dave Yeager. He's talking to the coaches. The coaches are talking to the players. At some point, this is an organizational problem if this team doesn't go the distance. Like I said, on one hand, I was encouraged to see production from the bench in a road game when they absolutely had to have it. On the flip side, I go back to what JJ Redick said this morning on First Take, when he explained that the pressure is not on Joel Embiid for this team's success, that it's on the whole organization. JJ Redick this morning on ESPN's First Take. JJ Redick's right. Listen, whether you were a believer in the process or not, whether you were a fan of it or not, the reality is that this organization did all that it did with their tanking process, with their drafting of Embiid, and then forcing Hinkie out. He wasn't fired. He was basically forced into making a decision where he felt like he had to leave. Bringing in the Colangelos and firing the Colangelos, and then letting Jimmy Butler leave, giving Ben Simmons the extension instead of trading him. All the things that they did over the course of multiple years through multiple general managers, front offices, and now multiple head coaches. And I'm supposed to believe that it's all one person's fault. If this organization does not get past second round, it is not Doc Rivers' fault. It is not Joel Embiid's fault. It's everyone's fault. Because when I'm watching that game last night, it became very clear to me that this team has talent. This team has players who can play. That the bench is not as bad and not as pathetic as we have been told it's supposed to be or compared to other teams. Listen, just because Boston has the most depth in the Eastern Conference doesn't mean that the gap between the Celtics' entire roster and the Sixers' entire roster is that large of a gap. It's not. So for me, when I see messages from people like Jeff in Ocean City, he says, I'm frustrated but not discouraged with the Sixers. People like Jeff are saying that over at 609-403-0973. They're saying that because you are in a situation where, as a Sixers fan, you just want the team to get to the postseason and try to make a run. And then see what happens. Just get to the Eastern Conference Finals and see what happens. Listen, the Sixers are very fortunate that they got James Harden for Ben Simmons, because now Ben Simmons has been shut down for the year. Apparently now he has a nerve issue in his back, and there's a lot of speculation for why that happened. So if I'm the Sixers, I found a way to get rid of get myself out of an untenable situation. Daryl Morey deserves a ton of credit for unloading the Al Horford contract, unloading Ben Simmons, finding a way to retool and rebuild this roster over the last couple of years. But it's put up or shut up time. And if the 76ers have any honest bone in their body, they will start treating these final 7 games less like we got to survive and get to the end, but instead more as a tune-up for what are we going to do when we get to the postseason? Because in today's NBA, remember, the NBA postseason doesn't start immediately when the season ends. You have the play-in tournament. So you're going to have an entire week for guys to rest, to get some practices in. You're not going right into the postseason when the season ends because you are not in the play-in tournament. So for the Sixers, I like to see them treat these final games as, I don't want to say a preseason schedule, but at least show that you're trying to get ready for the playoffs and not just hope to survive with no more injuries. Because when you have that negative mentality, sometimes they become self-fulfilling prophecies, and nobody wants to see that. Coming up next, we're going to dive deep into the Eagles and the NFL offseason with NJ Advanced Media's Chris Franklin, who's live out there in Arizona for the NFL owners' meetings. Of course, the Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie will speak later tonight. It will be 8 o'clock Eastern time is when he will speak. And then later this hour, we will get to more of your texts at 609-403-0973 and your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
It's Sixers basketball tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Maxey with a runner from 15 off the back, hits the backboard and goes in, and another timeout by Dallas.
It's Sixers Mavericks tomorrow. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
Sweetwater Marina and River Deck is back for another new and exciting season. Join them down by the historic Mullica River on Friday, March 31st at 4 for their opening day. Enjoy some new menu items, new drinks, and new bands are lined up for the season. Don't forget about their versatile event space, all maintained by experienced, attentive staff. This venue presents an exceptional setting for a celebration to remember. Sweetwater Marina and River Deck will be nothing short of amazing. Visit sweetwaterriverdeck.com for more information.
It's March, and you know what that means. Taxes are almost due. Jackson Hewitt can help you win tax season. That's the sound of your maximum tax refund. The sound of getting 50% off tax prep. The sound of many of our competitors' prices going up. And the sound of getting to your nearest Jackson Hewitt. Hurry in for 50% off tax prep before this offer expires April 9th. Limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
Every piece of land has a story. The Upshaw's right there is with a John Deere 1 Series tractor they call Penny.
When your project comes up, you have to just jump in and figure out what is it going to take.
From front loader to backhoe, the Upshaws have the tools to DIY all day long. Run with us on a 1 Series tractor and start telling your story. Get a 1 Series tractor starting at $134 per month at your John Deere dealer today. For additional cost information, please call toll-free 855-633-2315.
Do you love a good cigar almost as much as your family? Well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but you can find that perfect cigar at Smokers Haven. With 5 New Jersey locations, Smokers Haven has the finest selection of cigars in the area, like Ashton, My Father's, Romeo and Julieta, Monte Cristo, and more. All from the finest tobacco leaves and hand-rolled by the world's finest cigar makers. All locations are fully open. Stop in and let them help you find the perfect cigar to pair with your life. See all they have and their locations at smokershavennj.com.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I can't wait for what's next, even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Eliquis, the Pixaban tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist-prescribed blood thinner.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or apply stopped, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait, text PLACE to 200-300.
With GMF financing, to qualified buyers excludes Corvette.
It's back! That's right! March Markdown is back at Bennett Chevrolet. And this year, the savings are bigger and better than ever, with huge savings on every vehicle, because we need to move out over 200 of them right now. Believe it or not, Bennett Chevrolet is selling new vehicles at GM supplier employee pricing for everybody. Plus, there's available 0% financing. And Bennett is giving a minimum $10,000 for the worst clunker towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's at least $10,000 for total junk. Just imagine how much Bennett is paying for good trades. And Bennett's non-commissioned sales team is a delight to work with, because they're paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Don't miss March Markdowns going on now at Bennett Chevrolet, and get your new Chevy at GM supplier employee pricing, 0% available financing, and at least BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We'll get your guys' thoughts and comments just a bit on the text board, 609-403-0973, and your DMs in the 973 ESPN mobile app, which is free thanks to First Bank of Style. But we got to get to the Birds because it's been an interesting last few weeks for the Eagles. And let's be realistic, for the Eagles going into this offseason, they had difficult decisions to make. So to get all of that and more, he is out there in Arizona for the NFL owners meeting. Jeffrey Lurie, the Eagles owner, will speak later tonight. He will be there with Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, NJ.com. Follow him on Twitter at CFranklin. He's joining us now here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, welcome back into the show. How's Arizona treating you again?
Man, it's just, I gotta say, I'm liking it out here. It's a whole different situation this time, and there's no ghost, thankfully, of that game that is looking around here. But it's a little reminder. Hey, you know what? The season's officially started, and we're headed away to what they hope is going to be in Las Vegas.
Chris, one of the big takeaways I had from what Howie Roseman had to say yesterday was about the fact of the way the CJ Gardner-Johnson situation played out. And obviously, Howie didn't give a play-by-play, but I thought it was interesting for him to be as candid as he was to say, look, we only have a certain amount of money that we can spend, and we tried to get a deal done, and when it looked like it wasn't getting done, we pivoted. And I thought that was huge for him to say, look, we went into this trying to get something done, but we weren't able to get it done. And you could argue that the fact that CJ Gardner-Johnson is not here is in turn the domino effect being the reason why Slay and Bradbury are both back.
Yeah, you got a 2-for-1 deal. When you look when everything's all said and done, you got a 2-for-1 deal on part of that. And listen, for Gardner-Johnson was really looking for a high number, and for whatever reason, if you believe in yourself, you stick with your guns, and I don't blame him. If you feel like you're going to get paid a lot more, you should do that. But I think after you saw the subsequent moves that were safeties were getting paid around the league, you should have jumped on it. But they did try, and they went in there. Howard Roseman went in saying, listen, we got the limited resources. You can only do so much with what you got, especially knowing that you have Jalen Hurts that you got to sign to an extension, and then within a couple of years, you got to worry about Landon Dickerson and Devonta Smith getting an extension as well, too. So it couldn't spend too much of a position where they don't spend that much to begin with. So, yeah, when looking back on things, if Gardner-Johnson gets about 12, 13 interceptions, all right, we'll start hearing, well, they should have signed him and going somewhere elsewhere. But listen, when you get a cornerback, you get your cornerbacks back on the outside, I think that winds up being a good deal.
From your perspective, Chris, how much do you think Sean Desai has had an impact, his hiring on this offseason? Because we knew that there were guys that were going to leave. We all assumed that at least one of the two linebackers at minimum would leave. We all assumed that Hargrave was going to get big money. But there have been some surprises along the way to how this defense has been reshaped and remolded. So in your perspective, do you think part of what is going on is because of Sean Desai being the new defensive coordinator?
I think at a level up, I think it's a lot more with Nick Sirianni because he wanted to keep the same defensive scheme in place. Like he mentioned that today, like he really wanted to put his fingerprints on what his vision of a defense would be. And the fact that you see that you pretty much have the same style of defense coming back, but with some little tweaks, like some more man-to-man matching among the linebackers, safeties, and corners, you got those guys coming back. I think that it really allowed them to just go, hey, you know what, run it back as much as you could because you guys have guys who already know what they're doing. Now, will some of the terminology be the same as it was last year? Possibly. It could also be a little bit different as well, too. So it could take through training camp, maybe the first couple of games to get acclimated to that. But when you look at the personnel moves they made, yeah, it looks like it really just I put a lot of this on Sirianni based on what he was looking for.
When you think about the difference between last year's and this upcoming year's defense, a lot of fans are going to point to the players who are left. But who of the players who have been added, Chris, the new guys, do you think on defense could be the guy or guys to watch for this upcoming season?
One of the guys I'm really looking at, I think Nicholas Morrow. I know he didn't have the explosive type year that he was last year. I know he had 116, I think it was 116 tackles. But I look at what he's going to be asked to do, covering the flats, being able to blitz a little bit as well too. Sometimes I think he can be he can be a really good extra surprise on people in there. Also, I think Terrell Edmonds. I think for a short-term deal, knowing that he wants the longer thing, he's another guy I'm looking at that could, he's going to be around the box. But I think if you basically use him and be creative with him and rely on him saying, hey, you know what, you got a tight end coming out or after the line of scrimmage. Yeah, I think he could do well with that and hold his own. So those will be the two guys I really think could really make a difference.
It's been suggested that the Eagles do some of their best work when it's not the month of March, Chris. The idea that they got guys like A.J. Brown, like Garrett Blunt, Ronald Darby years ago, C.J. Gardner-Johnson last year, James Bradbury. They got all these guys in the months that were not the month of March. So how much of this offseason do you think is still to be determined with that history of Howie Roseman in mind?
I think especially June's going to be, I think that's the one time I'm really going to be looking at this team and really scrutinize, because especially with the June 1st cuts and teams needing to offload some of those veteran contracts to get under the cap and get ready. I think you'll see a lot more of those one-year deals starting to come up that way. Will we see, if I'm the Eagles, knowing that, and this is where the draft, trading the draft picks, how we could have a lot of success with, knowing that you're probably going to have a projected 12 picks next year. You're going to probably get an extra third compensatory pick for losing for Hargrave. So you're going to have 2 thirds. You're going to have 2 seconds because you still got that Mickey Loomis gift of a trade where you got a second round pick as well too. Maybe you take a chance and try to bring in some of the guys knowing that, hey, we'll package our number 3 this year and another chance to get a really, really, truly impact player that maybe has a couple a year left that maybe you want to sign long term, and then when Titans just Simmons, yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe they try to float that out there, see if they're willing to bite on that. But yeah, so I really think the draft, you may see one, but I think June's going to be a busy month for them.
We're talking with Chris Franklin, covers the Eagles for NJ.com and NJ Advanced Media. He's joining us here on Game Night, live from Arizona here on 97.3 ESPN, where the NFL owners meetings are going on. Chris, you mentioned the Titans, for example. A lot of Eagle fans, they're taking the clickbait that's online, and people are trying to suggest that the Eagles should go after Simmons and Byard and a partridge in a pear tree that's on the Titans roster. But do you think that the new GM of the Titans is really going to fall into a Howie Roseman trap, considering the organization that he just came from?
I think for any deal, if any trap is going to be, it's going to have to be a day. It's going to have to be a first round pick, or it's going to have to be a high day 2 pick. I think that's the only thing they're going to try to jettison for them. I mean, they're trying to rebuild their franchise. They're going to need as many picks as possible for impact players, especially in the top 100 of the draft. They would love to get that, but I really think it's going to be. In my heart of hearts, I think when all said and done, that Simmons and Byard, they still remain with the Titans. I just got that feel, and they'll play out their contracts, especially Byard, because he says he's loved being in the Nashville area. He's got ties there. I think he just had a community building that was named his name as well there too. So I think he's really going to stay there. But even with Simmons, I think they're going to say, hey, let's roll over the punches and go with that, unless they get a first round pick. So I wouldn't be expecting to see him in midnight green personally.
When you think about the Eagles and those 2 draft picks, do you think they actually keep both of them? If you had to put a percentage on it, how likely or unlikely do you think that they keep both those picks as is?
Oh, I'd probably say 70% they trade down, at least one of them. And if they trade down, for me, I think everybody looks at 10, but I think 30 has a lot of value as well too, because you'll get a lot of those teams who, especially when you go from day 1 to day 2, you get to reshuffle your board. You try to say, oh wow, this person's still available. Potentially change your draft plan as well too. So I think that 30 can have a lot of value. Obviously, 10 is going to have a lot. So, but I really think they would probably keep that, because you know how much they don't expect us to be there picking 10th unless they have a really bad year, and that's the case. It's going to be a big spotlight on everybody in our organization if they're picking 10th or higher with their own selection. So 30, I think 30 would be more in play, and I think they can get, who knows, maybe they get a future first, but you can get I think you can get a lot for that pick still.
Yeah, I'm conflicted, Chris, because there's a part of me that says that if you trade down from 10 to, let's say, like 17 or 18 or something, you're still getting a top 20 pick, and you're probably still getting a pretty darn good player. You might be able to recoup more than trading the 30 pick. But then there's another part of me, like you said, it's not every time you're getting a top 10 pick. And let's be realistic, the last time this team was this high was when they traded up and got Devonta Smith, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. and when you look at the lines, because this team loves to build the lines out, when you still have to factor in that you have Fletcher Cox going back for 1 year, and then, you're going to have to fill depth that way. You got Brandon Graham, and Derek Barnett's going to be a free agent after this season as well, so you're going to still always need edge rushers as well, too. Then you look at the offensive line, you're going to have to eventually find out who's going to be your guard, and then you got to basically think, by maybe 3-4 years, how long Lane's going to play. Lane's going to continue to play. So you got a lot of you need to fill some of those areas, the depth areas, well too, with good players. So that's why I probably keep 10, especially with this line, because I would go with defensive line most likely, but I think it's good enough that you can still get an impact tackle. And who knows, if Jalen Carter does slip and he's at 10, I'd seriously consider thinking about it as well too.
I'm glad you mentioned Carter, because I've had conversations with people about this, Chris, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this. I think that Carter makes sense for the Eagles, less because he's so talented and all of that stuff, but because if there's any locker room that has the veteran leadership to take a young man like that and explain to him why what he does off the field can impact his life and his future, it's got to be a locker room that's got Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson in it.
Yeah, because especially if you take a risk, I know there still could be some things that we don't know about the case that they play out. They could think, but there could be other things as well too. So you really need to make sure you vet and make sure you get the right guy. And if you find out, hey, you know what, here's a young kid did something really, really dumb, and people lost their lives in that thing, but you gotta think, if you feel like he's learned his lesson enough, and if you get the right support system around him, so that way you don't have to worry about a similar situation here. Because just imagine if you were looking at down 95, he did the same thing again. It's like, what are you doing, man? So you gotta make sure that he learned from his mistakes. He's not going to duplicate it again, and then make sure you surround him with the right people. And I think the Eagles do have enough veterans that are able to do that as well too. And even if you're looking a couple years down the line, if you still have a lot of those veterans around here, you still have like Jalen Hurts around, Landon Dickerson, guys like that, who will make sure they try to keep him in line as well too.
If the Eagles don't have a guy like Jalen Carter fall to them, do you still think they go defensive line with that 10th pick? Because there is a lot of D-line guys who are out there in this draft that have a lot of fans excited.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's I know Brian Brees is now starting to be mocked a little bit more toward the latter part of the first round, but I feel like he offers a lot there. Then you have like Lucas Van Ness, and he's getting some talk around as well too about being a guy who could be a late riser as well. Yeah, there's still a lot of talent that's going to be there and around at the defensive end and the interior defensive line stuff. So I think you can really do that. And then, I mean, if you want to trade back, I know I say it's more likely to trade the last one, but if you do get an offer that's like 2-10 wise in the pass up, and you move back a couple spots, hey, you get to pick up the picks, and you still be able to get one more at least, but still get one of those decent players that can help you in the long term future. So, yeah, I still think they would go defensive line on that end.
Chris, you're out there in Arizona for the NFL owners meetings where all these conversations are happening. Which of the rule changes today is your favorite?
Ooh, I know everybody's talking about the zero. It's a lot of some of the stuff is like tripping. I think for us now from a selfish standpoint, I think when you look at the way the cuts being one cut instead of like having to gradually cut down players, I think that's something I kind of like as well too, because you're getting more of an opportunity to evaluate some of these guys. You see them be able on the field. You don't have to worry about, and then the shell game of, let's cut them now, so we hope we get them later on, so we can sign them to the practice squad, and we get them later, and all that stuff. So you have to work for waivers like that. So I think overall that's mine, and I like jerseys, but when it comes to zero, I'm like, it's a jersey number. You can use anything else. Just slap a number or somebody, the name on the back plate, you go from there. I don't know.
See, I'm with you. See, this is why we can be friends, because to me, the roster cut down thing to me is my favorite one, because one, you're going to allow more guys to play the final preseason game. So you're not, running out there some randos. You have to figure out how to get them off the street to get them on the roster for the last game. And two, can you imagine how much more crazy Hard Knocks is going to be when there's only one cut down for that final episode? And three, Chris, if I had $1 for every time someone brought up Devin Allen to me last August, I could have paid some of my bills by now. Like I would have cleared out some of my debts. So to me, making a longer cut down to me is going to actually be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe that by the time they decide to schedule the third preseason game is right before that final cut down, that would be great, because you actually see some of these guys and maybe more entertaining as well too, knowing that you have the fringe third teamers that are going to play and a little bit notice system, but maybe some more veterans as well too. So maybe it'll make it a little entertaining for probably the 10,000 people that show up for the third preseason game, or I actually cheer for stuff like that. But I think that'll be pretty fun though to see that. I actually kind of like this role.
He's Chris Franklin. You can follow him on Twitter at @CFranklinNews for all your Eagles coverage. Check it out over at NJ.com, covering the Eagles for NJ Advanced Media. Chris, thanks for jumping on. Enjoy the Arizona weather. I'm being told it's super nice out there, and safe travels home, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I got to step out the sun at 75 degrees and it's blinding me a little bit, so I'm sorry, man. Sorry about that.
Chris Franklin joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, back to the text board. Cole from LBI, Dan and EHT. Your text and more at 609-403-0973 and your DMs in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action. It's Flyers Canadians tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN, and listen live on the free mobile app.
With Mega Millions now up to $322 million, what are you waiting for? A $2 chance could make you Jersey's next mega winner. After all, anything can happen in Jersey.
The Dell Technologies semi-annual sale starts now with limited quantity deals on select performance PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Save on select Vostro laptops with built-in security features and select Latitude laptops with enhanced privacy, collaboration, and connectivity. Save on select essential accessories plus free shipping and special financing with Dell Business Credit. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Lowe's MVP's bonus days are back for pros. Right now, buy a DeWalt 20-volt Max Power Stack Battery 2-pack at $199 and get a select DeWalt Bear Tool free. Plus, earn 3 times the bonus points on all Metabo HPT tools and products. Shop even more savings and bonus points offers during MVP's bonus days at Lowe's. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Valid 3/20 through 3/31. Subject to change. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. Visit Lowes.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
Look, folks, here's the deal. I'm running. Heck, I may even run again after that. Well, I'm running right now, and I can tell you, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Everyone's running to Springfield Mitsubishi in Atlantic City for $1 down.
No joke. Every vehicle, $1 down. They are doing things like you wouldn't believe with credit amnesty.
If you bring home $350 a week, you can get up to $25,000 in credit.
Brand new Mitsubishis from 17.5. 17.5, Jack. Woo!
And 2.9% financing. 2.9% at Springfield Mitsubishi Atlantic City.
You get a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. I'm not kidding around here. With only $1 down, it's big league.
Everyone's got a reason to run to the all-new Springfield Mitsubishi Atlantic City.
In Pleasantville.
They service all makes and models.
Springfield Mitsubishi AC.com.
Springfield Mitsubishi AC.com. 323 Mirage 17.5 down to $77 a month for 75 months at 5.55% APR. This tax title to qualified buyers.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun.
They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or apply. Stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right. You don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait. Text PLACE to 200-300.
Bet365 is giving you more this March with a mega $365 in bonus bets. Simply sign up, bet $1, and unlock your $365 in bonus bets. Check out our Bet Boost, offered across every game of the college basketball tournament throughout March. Sign up today, bet $1 and get $365 in bonus bets, and make your March mega with Bet365. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus and physically located in New Jersey.
It's March, and you know what that means? Taxes are almost due. Jackson Hewitt can help you win tax season. That's the sound of your maximum tax refund. The sound of getting 50% off tax prep. The sound of many of our competitors' prices going up. And the sound of getting to your nearest Jackson Hewitt. Hurry in for 50% off tax prep before this offer expires April 9th. Limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life oil filter for only $37.99. Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Get in on all the action throughout the month of March with Madness Zone at the Gallery Bar Book and Games in Ocean Casino Resort. Take in the college basketball tournament with a panoramic view of all the games, a beverage in your hand, a bet placed on your favorite team, and an atmosphere like no other. Watch, bet, eat, and drink all tournament long at the Gallery Bar Book and Games in Ocean Casino Resort. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Don't forget GameNight being brought to you by my friends over at Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to go to the cleaning guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Just call 609-641-6440. Because Jenkins has got you covered from new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, heaters, boilers, gas furnaces, leak repairs, and more. Just call Jenkins at 609-641-6440 and visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. All right, let's get to what you guys have to say over on the text board at 609-403-0973 ESPN. Coming in tonight from ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Tom from the Villas chimed in earlier. I didn't want to forget about Tom from the Villas. He said, let me ask you a question. What if the Sixers said, Joel, you're not playing tonight? And Joel turned around and said, I'm not playing. I'm playing tonight or I'm done for the season. I want to be traded. I think these elite guys do have the ability to play if they really want to. That's from Tom in the Village. Well, first of all, Tom, I think that you're approaching it from the wrong angle. Okay? And it's something that we don't know Joel Embiid personally. It's Like JJ Redick said, look, I know this guy personally. I know his personality. I know he's a competitor. I know what's to the floor, and that he likes to troll people and say things that trigger people. The reality is that I think that there comes with age, you would hope, maturity. And I think part of what's going on with Joel Embiid is that Joel said, I will listen to the doctors, I will listen to the coaches, I want to play, but they're telling me not to, so I am going to trust them and take the night off. So I don't think it's as simple as Embiid saying, I'm playing or not playing or trade me. I think the people who do those kind of things are the people that you don't want on your team. Those are the athletes that you don't want leading your franchise. I think that is part of the bigger picture. And so I think it's because Joel Embiid is not the kind of person, and because he doesn't have that kind of attitude, that is the reason why Joel Embiid doesn't fit into that concept. Listen, Tom, for the Villas, I understand what you're saying. Your thinking is that if the players really wanted to, they could force their way on and off the court, and that they have more power than, they try to let on. And they do have a lot of power. But I think that you got to protect the athlete from himself. And if Joel Embiid is really that tired and his calf is really that compromised, then it's in Joel Embiid's best interests to tell the Sixers, I understand what you're saying. I will listen to the doctors. I'll take the night off. So personally, if your athlete forces his way onto the court, whatever team you believe in, whoever the player is, and the team is being told you have to do this, and Joel Embiid's like, no, I'm playing or else, I don't think you want the guy on your team anyway. I think it's because Joel Embiid is not that kind of diva that Sixer fans and the Sixers organization love him as much as they do. Anonymous texter came in earlier. I did want to address this because the texter did ask me about a comment I made during the sports bash. Mike Gill said, Josh, how do you know for certain that Lamar Jackson is not willing to negotiate in good faith? I made the comment earlier that the reason why Lamar is not been traded and is still in the predicament that he is in is because of the fact that he's not negotiating good faith. The reason why I know for certain that Lamar is not negotiating good faith is because Lamar is being stubborn, and stubborn people don't negotiate in good faith. Stubborn people negotiate from a position of I'm right, you're wrong. I don't care what you or anybody else says. I'm going to do what I want to do. Lamar is treating this process like it has to be one way or else. He's obviously getting bad advice. He obviously is not interested in hearing from people who don't agree with him or see the world differently than he does. Listen, anyone in the NFL who is a player and anyone who is an agent wants Lamar to get the maximum dollar possible. There's nobody out there, aside from the teams who have to pay him the paycheck, that are interested in potentially not paying him. And like Howie Roseman said a couple of weeks ago, Howie Roseman himself said that we look at Jalen Hurts and say, well, we understand that we don't like the idea of giving one player that much money. It's even better to say we have a player we want to pay that much money to. For the Eagles, they look at Jalen Hurts and say, we don't mind giving you all this money because you've earned it and we want to reward you for everything you've done. On the flip side, the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson are at a crossroads because on one hand, Lamar thinks he deserves more than the Ravens want to pay him. And the Ravens feel like that Lamar is basically not willing to compromise, not willing to negotiate, as I said, in good faith. That's why. Dan EHC chimes in at 609-403-0973, says, it's difficult to accept as a fan when your team just isn't good enough. The Sixers are so close, but not quite good enough to win a championship. Maybe Doc and the coaching staff are the problem. The Phillies fired Girardi, went to the World Series. Eagles fired Doug Peterson 2 years later to go to the Super Bowl. I personally think it starts at the top. Laurie and Roseman, Middleton, Dombrowski. To me, Danny HT says the Sixers are weak at the top. All right, a couple things to address Danny HT. I love the thoughtful, put together text there from Danny HT. I think that it's never as simple as firing somebody and you make a championship run. I think the Phillies were very fortunate that Rob Thompson was the guy who was the bench coach. It wasn't somebody else filling in for Girardi. I think the Eagles were very, very fortunate that Doug Peterson, who won you your only Super Bowl in franchise history, as he walked out the door, that there was a good enough coach coming in after him to be able to stabilize the ship and get you back to the postseason 2 consecutive years. And that second year, you got to a championship. It's not always Philadelphia fans have been spoiled by the idea that, like you said, the people running the organization have done such a good job at bringing in people in after the person who was fired. That is the key there. The fact that you say the Sixers are weak at the top, I don't think that's 100% fair, because I think Josh Harris and the Sixers ownership group, they brought in Sam Hinkie to execute a vision. And that vision was disrupted by the NBA forcing the 76ers to take on the Colangelos. Then they had to unload the Colangelos. Then they had to kind of lick their wounds, refine themselves. And they were basically, they were gifted Daryl Morey leaving Houston and being available. They were gifted Doc Rivers being fired by the Clippers and being brought in afterward. I think that there's a lot that goes into the Sixers that is not just who's at the top of the rung. I think Daryl Morey is a good executive, and I think Elton Brand understands players and agents very well. I think both of them are very competent, very good. If you want to say that Josh Harris is of the main ownership groups in Philadelphia, number 3 behind Laurie, Middleton, and then Harris, I can completely accept that. But I don't know if weak is the right word. I think that's a little bit of an unfair description of the situation. George from Summers Point chimes in. He says, "Hey Josh, do you think if the Sixers do not make a prolonged playoff run this year that Doc Rivers is gone?" Jeff from Summers Point, I think that's probably the case. And it's not because Doc Rivers may have necessarily done anything wrong, but if you don't get out of the second round again this year, it's really going to be difficult for the average fan to accept them running it back next year. I think that in that case, the head coach is probably the easiest person to get rid of. We know that Daryl Morey has a long-standing history with James Harden, so Harden staying probably has less to do with Doc Rivers than it does with Daryl Morey. I would think that, if you were to bring in somebody else, at least it's a new voice in the organization, not just for the players and in the locker room, but for the fans. Some of this is about the people who come to the games as well. And if the Sixers, if their priority is to make sure that they keep selling out the building, they can't just run it back next year. They gotta give the fans, for lack of a better term, they got to give them something. And I think that something is probably firing somebody and making some other roster changes that we can get into at some other date. Good messages coming in from everybody. Thanks again to Chris Frankfurt from NG Advanced Media for joining me tonight. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life.
And for those watching only on the YouTube channel, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. I appreciate you guys on the YouTube side. Quick thought before I get out of here. Just to follow up on the question about the Sixers ownership, I think the problem in sports is that a lot of times there is a collision course when it comes to how fans look at sports and how organizations look at sports. And not every owner cares about winning a championship. Not every owner cares about being the best they can be. And I think the problem for a city like Philadelphia is they see that the owner of the Eagles, who's talking to the media tonight, the owner of the Phillies, they see those guys out front, and they had years of people like Ed Snyder visibly speaking for the organization, visibly saying, I want to win. I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. So they look instinctively to get that from Josh Harris. And when they don't get that, they look at Harris and they say, what is wrong with you? You're weak. You don't care. And it's not that Josh Harris and the ownership group of Sixers don't care. It's the fact that they look at this product as a business venture, and winning is part of the success and making money, but it's not the only way to make money. Look, they're not building an arena only if they win an NBA championship. They're building an arena for themselves no matter what, because it's in the best interest of business. So I think the problem is there's a misinterpretation between what a Philadelphia sports fan, and there's other sports fandoms that do the same thing. They see an owner that is passionate, that is out front, that cares, and then they see other owners who don't give them the same. You look what happened with the New York Yankees. George Steinbrenner was out front for years. The Mara family with the Giants have been vocal and out front for years. And New York sports fans look negatively to a guy like the owner of the Knicks, like James Dolan, or the owner of the Nets, like Joe Tsai, or to an owner of the Jets, like Woody Johnson, and they say, well, why can't you be like those guys? You know, you go to a city, like Washington, where everyone hates Dan Snyder, but it's not like the other teams were giving you that much more. Yeah, the Washington Nationals won a World Series a few years ago, but aside from that, it's not like Ted Leonisis has given the Washington Wizards a chance to win an NBA championship anytime soon. You go out to LA and you realize that the Buss family is famous in LA, but they're in some ways living off a reputation for some of their success. The owner of the Kings, nobody cares about that guy because they already won 2 cups. That guy could never win another championship again, and LA will still like the Kings to some extent. The Dodgers are arguably, if not the number 1, the number 2 team out there in LA, and people only like the Dodgers right now because they won a World Series recently. If they didn't win a World Series recently, Dodger fans would be hating on that guy. So a lot of this is subjective. It's not as apples to apples comparisons. So there's a collision course between the owner who cares about business and the owner who is out front saying what the fans want to hear. And I think the problem for Josh Harris and the Sixers, top of the organization, is that those guys are not out in front of the public as much as the other guys. I feel like Dave Dombrowski is talking all the time, right? You know, Daryl Morey doesn't talk to the media all the time. Howie Roseman is out in front of things. Jeffrey Lurie speaks a couple times a year. You don't get that from Josh Harris. So people perceive them as lesser than. And again, as we know, perception becomes reality. I'm Josh Hennig. Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and right here on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you tomorrow.